The massive Valerian Empire had ruled 3 entire galaxies for over 2,000 years. Their secret weapon wasn't advanced technology or powerful armies, it was a strange crystalline crown that could read minds and choose the next ruler. This wasn't just any piece of jewelry. The crown was alive in its own way, glowing with inner light when it found someone worthy to lead billions of people across countless worlds. But now, everything was falling apart. Emperor Krathvel was dying slowly in his dark palace made of black stone. The crown sat next to his bed, completely dark and cold. For the past 50 years, it had rejected everyone who tried to claim it. Brave warriors who had conquered entire star systems couldn't make it glow. Brilliant scholars who understood the mysteries of the universe failed its test. Even members of the royal family with pure bloodlines were turned away. The nobles were getting desperate and angry. Some whispered that the crown was broken. Others believed the royal bloodline had been cursed. Fear spread through the empire like wildfire. Without a chosen successor, the vast territories would tear themselves apart in civil war. Already, some outer planets had stopped sending tribute. Rebel groups were forming on distant worlds. The greatest empire in galactic history was about to collapse. Dr. Jessica Murphy had no idea about any of this political chaos when her small research ship landed on the capital world. She was just a simple archaeologist from Earth, excited about the chance to study alien artifacts. This was humanity's first real cultural exchange with the Valerian Empire, and Jessica felt incredibly lucky to be chosen for the program. Earth was still new to the galactic community. Humans had only made contact with other intelligent species about 20 years ago. Most aliens still saw them as primitive newcomers who barely understood space travel. Jessica didn't mind the condescending looks from Valerian officials. She was here to do her job, catalog ancient relics and learn about their fascinating civilization. The palace was unlike anything Jessica had ever seen. Massive towers of black stone stretched toward the purple sky. Crystal formations grew from the walls like frozen lightning. Gravity felt slightly different here, making her steps feel bouncy and strange. The air itself seemed to hum with some kind of energy that made her skin tingle. Her guide was a tall, elegant Valerian named Coordinator Vexhan. Like all his people, he had pale blue skin and large dark eyes that seemed to look right through her. Valerians were natural telepaths, though they considered it rude to read human minds without permission. Jessica appreciated that courtesy, even if she suspected some of them did it anyway. Your workspace is in the lower vaults, Vexhan explained in his musical voice. We have preserved artifacts from our earliest dynasties there. Some are over 5,000 years old. Please be careful, many items are sensitive to touch. Jessica nodded eagerly. She had spent years studying alien cultures through their tools and art. Every broken pottery piece and tarnished weapon told a story about the people who made it. The Valerians had built one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, but their early history was still mysterious. The vault levels were quiet and cool. Ancient lighting systems cast a soft glow over rows of display cases and storage containers. Jessica felt like a kid in the world's best museum. There were weapons that could cut through solid rock, communication devices that worked across impossible distances, and art pieces that seemed to move when she wasn't looking directly at them. What fascinated her most were the ceremonial objects. The Valerians had always mixed their technology with something that felt almost magical. Their tools didn't just work, they seemed to respond to emotions and thoughts. Jessica had read about this in the research files, but seeing it in person was incredible. She had no idea that just a few levels above her, the Emperor was taking his final breaths. She didn't know that worried nobles were gathering in emergency councils, arguing about what to do when their ruler died. The fate of 3 galaxies hung in the balance, but Jessica was completely focused on carefully photographing a beautiful crystal sculpture that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. Jessica had been working in the archives for 3 days when she made a mistake that would change galactic history forever. She was cataloging items in what she thought was just another storage room, carefully photographing ceremonial cups and ancient weapons. The Valerian writing on the door had been too faded for her translation device to read properly, so she had no idea this was actually a restricted area. The room felt different from the others. The air seemed thicker here, almost alive with energy. Strange shadows moved in the corners even when she held her light steady. Jessica tried to ignore the creepy feeling and focus on her work. She had found some beautiful pieces, ornate daggers with handles that felt warm to the touch, and jewelry that seemed to hum very quietly. Then she spotted something that made her heart race with excitement. In the center of the room, sitting on a simple stone pedestal, was the most incredible artifact she had ever seen. It looked like a crown, but not like any crown from Earth. This one was made of some kind of living crystal that seemed to grow in impossible geometric patterns. Even though it wasn't glowing, Jessica could feel power radiating from it like heat from a fire. She approached it slowly, her scientific mind racing. This had to be incredibly old and valuable. The craftsmanship was beyond anything she had seen in the other vaults. As she got closer, she noticed tiny symbols carved into the crystal that seemed to move and shift when she wasn't looking directly at them. Jessica pulled out her scanner to take readings, but the device went crazy. Numbers flashed across the screen too fast to read, then it started beeping frantically before shutting down completely. She tried her backup scanner, but the same thing happened. Whatever this crown was made of, it was interfering with her equipment in ways that shouldn't be possible. That's when she made her fatal mistake. Jessica reached out to touch one of the crystal formations, thinking she could at least feel what kind of material it was. The moment her fingertip brushed the surface, everything went wrong. The room filled with the loudest alarm she had ever heard. Red lights started flashing from hidden panels in the walls. Heavy metal doors slammed shut with a sound like thunder, sealing her inside. Jessica spun around in panic, realizing she had triggered some kind of ancient security system. She was trapped in here with no way to call for help. But that wasn't the worst part. The crown had started to change. The crystal began glowing with a soft inner light that grew brighter by the second. Jessica backed away, but she couldn't take her eyes off it. The light wasn't harsh or painful, it was actually kind of beautiful, like captured sunlight. Then something impossible happened. The crown lifted off its pedestal and floated toward her. Jessica tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The sealed doors wouldn't budge no matter how hard she pushed. The floating crown moved slowly, almost gently, until it hovered just above her head. Jessica felt a strange tingling sensation, like mild electricity running through her hair. The crown settled onto her head with surprising gentleness. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made specifically for her. For a moment, everything was quiet and peaceful. Then the real show began. The crown exploded with brilliant golden light that filled the entire room. Jessica felt a massive surge of energy flow through her body, but it wasn't painful. It felt more like diving into warm water or standing in perfect sunshine. Information flooded her mind, not words or pictures, but pure knowledge about the crown, the empire, and things she couldn't even begin to understand. The psychic blast was so powerful it traveled through the entire palace like a shock wave. In his dying chamber, Emperor Krathvel sat up in bed for the first time in weeks, his eyes wide with amazement. Guards throughout the building stopped what they were doing as they felt the mental pulse wash over them. Even non-telepathic species could sense that something massive had just happened. Emergency teams raced through the corridors, following the source of the disturbance. When they finally broke through the sealed doors, they found Jessica unconscious on the floor. But she wasn't alone. The crown blazed above her like a small sun, and her exposed skin was covered with flowing Valerian symbols that moved like living tattoos. The ancient artifact that had rejected every candidate for 50 years had finally made its choice. And incredibly, impossibly, it had chosen a human. Jessica woke up in the most luxurious room she had ever seen, but she felt terrible. Her head was pounding, her skin tingled all over, and she could barely remember what had happened in the archive. The last clear memory was touching that strange crystal crown. Everything after that was just flashes of golden light and overwhelming sensations. A tall figure sat beside her bed, Emperor Krathvel himself. Jessica had only seen him in official portraits before, but now she could tell he was very sick. His pale blue skin looked almost gray, and his breathing was shallow and labored. Despite his condition, his large dark eyes were focused on her with intense interest. "You're awake," he said in a weak but kind voice. "Good. We have much to discuss and very little time." Jessica tried to sit up, but the room spun around her. "What happened to me? Where's the crown? Did I damage it? I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to trigger your security system. I was just doing research and dash." The Emperor held up a hand to stop her rambling. "Dr. Murphy, you didn't damage anything. Quite the opposite. The crown has chosen you as my successor." For a moment, Jessica thought she had misunderstood his accent. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "The crown of Valeria has selected you to rule our empire after my death." Jessica stared at him in complete shock, then started laughing. Not happy laughter, but the kind that happens when something is so ridiculous your brain can't process it. "That's impossible. I'm just a researcher. I study dead cultures, I don't rule living ones. There has to be some mistake." But even as she spoke, Jessica could feel something different about herself. Her thoughts seemed clearer somehow, and she could sense the Emperor's emotions, his sadness, his relief, and strangely, his hope. It was like having a sixth sense she had never possessed before. Emperor Krathvel leaned forward slightly. The crown doesn't make mistakes. It has been choosing our rulers for over 2,000 years. May I show you why it selected you? Before Jessica could answer, she felt a gentle touch in her mind. It wasn't invasive or frightening, more like someone carefully looking through old photo albums with her permission. Through the crown's connection, the Emperor experienced her memories directly. He saw Jessica as a graduate student, working 3 jobs to pay for school but still finding time to help struggling classmates with their research. He witnessed her patience with difficult professors and her determination to understand alien cultures without judging them by human standards. Most importantly, he felt her deep sense of fairness, how she always tried to see situations from multiple perspectives before making decisions. The Emperor saw the time Jessica had stood up to a department head who was stealing credit from his graduate students. She had risked her entire career to expose his behavior, not for personal gain, but because it was the right thing to do. He experienced her genuine care for her alien colleagues during the cultural exchange program, how she learned their customs and treated them with respect when others saw them as curiosities. "You have something our nobles have lost," the Emperor whispered, his voice growing weaker. "You care about people, not power, not wealth, not status. Just people. The crown recognizes this quality." Jessica shook her head frantically. "But I don't know anything about running an empire. I can barely manage my own research budget. This is crazy." "The crown will teach you what you need to know. It contains the wisdom of every ruler who came before. But more importantly, it chose you because you already have the most crucial quality, the desire to protect others, even at personal cost." As they spoke, urgent messages were pouring into the palace from across the empire. News of the crown's choice had spread quickly, and the reaction was explosive. Some outer systems had declared independence rather than bow to a human ruler. Noble families were forming alliances and gathering their private armies. Several trade routes had been blockaded by groups claiming the crown had been corrupted by alien influence. "You see our situation," the Emperor said sadly. "If you refuse the crown, our empire will tear itself apart in civil war. Billions will die. But if you accept, many will still resist your rule simply because you are human." Jessica felt the weight of impossible responsibility crushing down on her. She thought about all the peaceful worlds she had read about in her research, planets full of families, children, artists, and dreamers who would become casualties if the empire collapsed into chaos. "I can't do this," she said quietly. "But I can't walk away either, can I?" The Emperor smiled for the first time since she had awakened. The crown chose well. Very well indeed. The imperial court had never seen anything like Jessica's approach to ruling. Traditional Valerian emperors stayed in their palace, making decisions from their throne room and communicating with subjects through official channels. They ruled through psychic commands that couldn't be questioned or disobeyed. But Jessica threw all of that out the window from day one. Her first shocking decision was to cancel the elaborate coronation ceremony that had been planned for months. Instead, she asked for a simple meeting with representatives from every major world in the empire. The nobles were horrified. "You can't just talk to common people like they're your equals," protested Lord Commander XHYSS. "The crown demands respect and distance." But Jessica ignored their complaints. She had the crown now, and she could feel its approval when she made decisions that truly helped people. The ancient artifact seemed to pulse with warm energy whenever she chose compassion over tradition. Her first real test came just 3 weeks into her reign. The mining planet Vega 7 was facing complete destruction from massive cosmic storms that happened every few decades. These weren't ordinary weather patterns, they were electromagnetic hurricanes that could strip the atmosphere from an entire world. Previous emperors had simply written off planets like this, relocating the most valuable workers and abandoning everyone else. When Jessica heard about the crisis, she didn't hesitate. "Prepare my ship," she told her shocked advisors. "We're going to Vega 7. "Your Majesty," stammered Coordinator Vexhan, "emperors don't visit disaster zones personally. It's too dangerous. Send the evacuation fleet and let the local authorities handle it." Jessica looked at him with determination that reminded everyone why the crown had chosen her. 50 million people are about to lose their homes. I'm not going to abandon them from the comfort of my palace. The journey to Vega 7 took 2 days through dangerous space routes. When Jessica's ship arrived, she found complete chaos. The mining colonies were in panic as families tried to decide what belongings they could take and what they had to leave behind forever. The electromagnetic storms were already affecting communication systems and transportation. But instead of staying safely on her ship and giving orders, Jessica did something that amazed everyone. She rolled up her sleeves and got to work. She helped carry elderly miners to evacuation shuttles. She comforted crying children who were scared about leaving the only home they had ever known. She even worked alongside construction crews to build temporary shelters for families who couldn't get off-world immediately. The miners couldn't believe their eyes. Here was the most powerful person in 3 galaxies, and she was personally loading supply boxes and distributing food rations. She learned their names, asked about their families, and listened to their concerns with genuine interest. "Your Majesty," said an old miner named Keldran, his voice filled with wonder, "no emperor has ever visited our world before. Why did you come here yourself?" Jessica paused from organizing medical supplies and looked at him seriously. "Because you're not just statistics in a report. You're people with lives and dreams and families. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't do everything possible to help you." Word of Jessica's hands-on leadership spread quickly throughout the Empire. People heard stories of their new human empress working shoulder to shoulder with common citizens. The crown's golden light grew noticeably brighter as more and more worlds began to support her unusual approach to ruling. Her next major challenge came when 2 neighboring systems got into a serious trade dispute. The aquatic Murdashi and the silicon-based Christothians had been arguing for months about shipping routes through their territories. Traditional Valerian justice would have involved psychic interrogation and imposed decisions that neither side would be happy with. Instead, Jessica traveled to both worlds and spent days learning about their cultures and needs. She discovered that the real problem wasn't the shipping routes at all, it was a misunderstanding about territorial boundaries that had been going on for decades. Rather than forcing a solution on them, Jessica brought representatives from both species together and facilitated patient negotiations. She helped them find creative compromises that actually benefited both sides. The Murdashi got protected breeding areas for their young, while the Christothians received mineral mining rights they had wanted for years. But Jessica's most radical decision came when she started sharing real authority with elected councils from different worlds. This shocked the noble families more than anything else she had done. Valerian emperors had always held absolute power. The idea of actually listening to representatives chosen by common people was revolutionary. "The crown grows stronger when we work together," Jessica explained to her horrified advisors. "Maybe it's been trying to tell us something all along." And she was right. With each inclusive decision, each moment of genuine care for her subjects, the crown blazed brighter than it had in centuries. The rebellion came exactly 1 year after Jessica had accepted the crown. A group of powerful noble families had spent months secretly planning their attack, convinced that the Empire would rally behind them once they removed the human pretender from power. They called themselves the Pure Blood Coalition, and they believed they were saving Valerian civilization from contamination. Lord Admiral Thekmoros led the rebel fleet personally. He was from one of the oldest noble families in the Empire, and his ancestors had served emperors for over 1,000 years. The idea of bowing to a human filled him with rage and disgust. "Our bloodlines stretch back to the First Dynasty," he told his fellow conspirators. "We will not be ruled by some primitive alien who stumbled into our most sacred relic." The rebels had stolen 12 of the Empire's most advanced warships during coordinated attacks on military bases. These weren't ordinary vessels, they were equipped with weapons that could destroy entire planets and shields that could withstand the explosive force of dying stars. The Pure Blood Coalition was confident that their surprise attack would end Jessica's reign in a matter of hours. But when their fleet arrived at the capital world, they found something they had never expected. Instead of a few loyal guards protecting the palace, they faced a massive defensive force made up of ships from dozens of different species and worlds. The aquatic Murdashi had sent their fastest attack cruisers. The mining colonies had converted their heavy industrial ships into improvised battleships. Even the peaceful agricultural worlds had contributed whatever vessels they could spare. "This is impossible," whispered Commander Yeltareth from the rebel flagship's bridge. "These species barely tolerated each other before the human arrived. How are they working together so seamlessly?" Admiral Thekmoros studied the defensive formation and felt his confidence wavering. The enemy fleet was 3 times larger than intelligence reports had suggested, and they were coordinating their movements with military precision. "It doesn't matter," he said firmly. "They are still fighting for an illegitimate ruler. Once we eliminate the human, they'll surrender." The battle began with the rebels launching their most devastating weapons. Plasma cannons that could melt through solid metal fired continuously at the defensive ships. But instead of scattering in panic, the mixed fleet held their formation and returned fire with coordinated precision. Species that had been traditional enemies were now protecting each other's flanks and sharing shield power. From her command center in the palace, Jessica watched the battle with a heavy heart. She could have ended the conflict immediately using the Crown's most terrible powers. The ancient artifact contained weapons that could shut down every ship in the rebel fleet or even stop the hearts of everyone aboard. Previous emperors had used such methods to crush rebellions quickly and decisively. But Jessica couldn't bring herself to use those devastating abilities. These rebels were still her people, even if they opposed her. Instead, she made a decision that shocked everyone in her command center. "Open a communication channel to the entire rebel fleet," she ordered. "Not just their commanders, every single person on those ships." Her advisors stared at her in confusion. "Your Majesty," said Coordinator Vexhen, "what are you planning to do?" Jessica placed her hands on the crown and felt its warm energy flowing through her mind. "I'm going to show them who I really am." Using the crown's psychic network, Jessica broadcast her memories and emotions directly to everyone in the rebel fleet. But these weren't propaganda messages or political speeches. Instead, she shared her genuine experiences as Empress, the joy she felt when helping families evacuate from Vega 7, the satisfaction of mediating peaceful solutions between rival species, and most importantly, her deep love for all the people in her empire. The rebel soldiers experienced Jessica's memories as if they were their own. They felt her exhaustion after working 18-hour days to solve trade disputes. They shared her worry when colonies faced natural disasters. They understood her loneliness as a human trying to fit into an alien culture, and her determination to protect everyone under her rule regardless of their species or social status. Commander Yeltareth was the first to break. Tears streamed down his blue face as he experienced Jessica's genuine concern for people like him, career military officers who had devoted their lives to serving the Empire. She actually cares about us," he whispered in amazement. One by one, the rebel ships stopped firing. Their crews were overwhelmed by the realization that they had been fighting someone who truly wanted what was best for them. Admiral Thekmoros held out the longest, but even he finally surrendered when he felt Jessica's memories of visiting wounded soldiers in military hospitals, personally ensuring they received the best possible care. The surrender was swift and complete. But instead of executing the rebel leaders as previous emperors would have done, Jessica pardoned them and invited them to join her new government. "We're stronger when we work together," she told the former rebels. "Even when we disagree." Over the following years, Jessica established a revolutionary form of government that blended human democratic ideals with Valerian psychic abilities. The crown remained as the ultimate authority, but its power flowed through elected councils representing every world and species in the empire. Representatives chosen by common people had real authority to make decisions about their own regions. As decades passed, neighboring empires watched in amazement as the Valerian territories prospered under this unusual system. While other galactic powers tore themselves apart in civil wars and succession crises, Jessica's empire grew stronger and more unified. Trade flourished between species that had once been enemies. Scientific advances accelerated as different cultures shared their knowledge freely. The crown's light had never been brighter, proving that sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't superior technology or psychic dominance, it's simple, stubborn compassion combined with the wisdom to trust others with responsibility. Jessica had shown the galaxy that true leadership comes not from commanding obedience, but from earning trust through genuine care for those you serve.